Next up is an engaging panel discussion on 3D printing and prefabrication. These are two transformative technologies in the construction industry. So for this, this panel discussion has been sponsored by Ultratech. One of the recent technologies introduced by Ultratech in collaboration with Home Mission in India is the concept of ready manufactured buildings, also known as building as a product. This groundbreaking approach aligns with today's panel discussion's theme, where manufacturing buildings in off-site precasting factories are becoming common, but erecting them without the need for transportation is a new frontier. A model of 1 BHK unit, which was manufactured, finished, and fitted out in just 96 hours. Yes, just 96 hours is placed at the entrance of the auditorium for you to please experience it firsthand. This model exemplifies how modular construction can revolutionize the way buildings are produced and assembled, offering a faster, more efficient, and sustainable solution for modern housing. For this panel discussion, I would like to invite on stage our moderator, Aditya Thakur, on stage. Can you have a big round of applause for Aditya, please? Aditya is based in Pune, is a venture partner at Brick and Mortar Ventures, a California-based VC firm which is also recognized as one of the oldest construction technology VCs and investment firm. Focusing on the APAC investments, he helps portfolio companies with product strategy from market fit to scaling. His 7+ years in construction technology include witnessing a startup scale to acquisition. His global experience spans the US, EMA, APAC, and Middle East markets. Prior roles including Director of Product Management at Autodesk, at PlanGrid, where he developed enterprise tools and led by customer acquisition tools. I would invite and hand it over to Aditya to please introduce our remaining panelists. And yes, thank you. Yes, you can.
I'll just introduce you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, everyone. You all are very brave because this is the last session before lunch, and I know our stomachs are starting to growl. So please hold on for 30-35 minutes, and we'll try to make this engaging. So I'm super excited to host this panel because I really am passionate about modular construction and 3D printing. I'll start with Shreeram. So Shreeram is the co-founder and CEO of Modulus Housing, IIT Madras alum 2018 with BTech in Civil. He did a small stint at L&T before starting up. At Modulus, we are disrupting the low-rise buildings using modular factory-built construction. Welcome, Shreeram. Next, Aditya. So Aditya VS is the co-founder and CEO of Tvasta, a vertically integrated 3D printing company that intends to bring automation to construction sector. An IIT Madras alum as well, with a background in mechanical engineering and product design. He leads efforts to develop cutting-edge 3D printers and solutions for housing infrastructure projects across India, US, and Middle East. Round of applause for Aditya. Next, we'll have Shabbir on the stage. So Shabbir, an IIT Roorkee alumnus and a precast design pioneer. So Shabbir founded Slabs Engineering in 2014 after working with firms like Arup. With over 30 million square feet of precast projects designed, he is literally transforming construction with innovative, high-quality solutions. Passionate about R&D, he also enjoys swimming, reading, and politics. Welcome, Shabbir. Last but not the least, we needed to have a VC side of the equation. So we are getting Tejas. So Tejas is a management professional who's part of Nova, which is the corporate ventures team inside of Saint-Gobain. He leads startup collaborations and investment in India. He's a mechanical engineer with close to 17 years of experience in R&D, product management, and strategy. He's passionate about connecting ideas, capital, and people to make positive difference in the industry. He teaches the strategy course at Executive MBA program at Dayanand Sagar University. Big hand for Tejas. Okay, sorry. The first question to just kick off the panel I've been in, I was in Silicon Valley for the last 10, 11 years. And outside of Silicon Valley, people say that, Silicon Valley has this thing that they do their own thing and they create these hype cycles. And unfortunately, a lot of the technologies that you all are building are seen part of this hype cycle. 3D printing, modular housing. Like modular housing, I mean, Shreeram, you have seen all the companies which made it big and went down. So my first question, I want to start from a negative and convert it to a positive is, why do you think 3D printing, and we'll start with Shreeram and then go to Aditya, like why do you think the time is now for modular and 3D printing? And related is, how have you overcome those adoption and negative connotations associated with both these technologies? So we'll start with Shreeram.
We spend hardly 12 to 15 rupees in labor for 100 rupees of construction. So even if you make it 2x productive, it is going to be 5-6 rupees of saving, which is getting killed in logistics, right? So this has been a huge bottleneck for prefab or modular construction to come into India. So our perspective is that modular construction companies in India should target the right GTMs. And one of the GTMs that we have identified is low-rise buildings. So low-rise buildings is easily like $80 to $100 billion market in India. It's super unorganized. The game is not in labor productivity. The game is answering the procurement arbitrage. So low-rise buildings are being done by local masons and local contractors in India, and they procure from retail units. And this is at least 4 or 5 layers away from OEMs, unlike how a L&T or a Shapoorji purchases, right? So the moment you put hundreds of buildings in a factory and you start centralizing procurement, that's where you start playing the unit economics game. So we are going after low-rise buildings. And of course, there are customers, you're going to end up finding customers who emphasize quality. Like one of the product segments that we've rolled out is building edge data centers with Johnson Control, where quality is of paramount importance. So I think the game lies in figuring out interesting GTMs for you to play. So that's how we are looking at this.
Okay, maybe we'll hear from Aditya.
Yeah, I think thanks a lot, Aditya, for that great question. So I think we have seen instances of companies trying to sort of get into modular construction and 3D printing and sometimes having failure. So one of the things that we are very conscious about is we are, in a sense, industry outsiders. And when we get into application areas of industry, we have to really understand how it functions. And one of the key elements that we focus on is to ensure that we are always constructing with customers' capital. So cash flow management was one of the biggest reasons why many of these companies which you quoted have gone down. And in a race to sort of construct more, build more, do it in a shorter period of time, what these companies tend to do is invest their own capital to finish the projects faster, which sort of creates negative cash flow cycles for them, which ends up in disaster. So that's one key element that we focus on. So behave like a construction company when you're in the construction industry is a key element. Second aspect is regulatory frameworks. So any new technology coming into the construction industry will be scrutinized heavily. There will be initially heavy regulation costs, in the sense your buildings will tend to be over-designed. So any company that's bringing a technology has to be ready to sort of get over that cliff to ensure that their technology is recognized by the right regulator. So we have gone through that difficult path. Our technology is recognized in the Indian context by Building Materials Technology Promotion Council. In US, we have got structural verification in multiple states. And in UAE, there is a code from Dubai municipality. So that's the second biggest challenge. The third biggest challenge is customer acceptance. So Indian context, we sort of consciously market our buildings as being equivalent to conventional construction, although our buildings are stronger, because there is a strong pull towards conventional brick and mortar construction. So the way we sort of portray ourselves to the market is very important, because customer acceptance is, I mean, sometimes customers are like flocks of sheep, so one negative news cycle can really impact things. But apart from all of this, I think I am very bullish in the long term globally on the theory that automation is going to come into the construction industry quite rapidly. There is significant labor shortage in the Indian context, but in the Western context, it's much more aggravated. There is significant housing shortages, and countries are not able to build. So that's the market that we are going after. We are seeing that unit economics-wise, we are already quite ahead in the US and other markets. In the Indian market, it is a slightly longer journey, and we'll have to achieve economies of scale in certain projects. So that's where we are.
Cool. Shabbir, from your perspective, like precast has been, like I think, of the three most widely adopted, and there's a growth. What do you see is the opportunity and challenge of scaling that within India?
Right. So first of all, I'm very glad to be in Bangalore, and to answer all your questions, in Bangalore itself, you can see more than 3 million square feet of projects in which we were directly involved, standing tall in precast, be it for Embassy Group, or the multi-level car park, office building for Infosys. To have an example, if you see every Indira canteen next to metro station, which was designed by us, is standing powerfully tall. So 200 such canteens were built in 180 working days. So that's an amazing example. Now, it's been more than 6 years. There's no even a single maintenance required to these public buildings, right? So it's a great example of how precast is implemented in all such projects, standing tall in Bangalore itself. Now, like I was just reading through reports of McKinsey, across the world, prefabrication industry is running in $1 trillion economy. That's the entire the turnover of precast or modular construction industry so far globally, and it's growing 8% annually. So as very rightly said by the panelists that cost-effective technology solutions will always survive and thrive in the marketplace. So that's the tipping point actually. So every technology, if you're adding value to customer, then definitely there is a marketplace for it, right? So I don't see that this technology will definitely grow year on year, and there's a huge demand potentially. And one should look at the life cycle of the building. It's not what today the cost of the project is, but eventually what will be the cost to maintain that building, the maintenance cost, the durability aspects of it. And if you are able to reduce that cost also eventually over the life cycle of the building, then definitely you are adding value to the customer.
Got it. Tejas, from your perspective, like you have actually invested in one of the companies on the panel. Like what was the thinking from Saint-Gobain? Why now? What was the adoption challenge that you overcame before deciding to invest?
Sure. So as someone who is one of the larger players in the construction industry, we want to be at the forefront of what's happening in terms of technology. So when we evaluated what's next for us, we looked at 3D printing. We evaluated a bunch of startups. Tvasta, happy to say that is part of our portfolio, and we always look at how we can take a technology and add value to it. So what Shabbir just said, if you can add value to what's already existing in the market, that's where we want to be.
Got it. I think there's a bird chirping which is either agreeing with us or not agreeing with us. So we'll see how it goes. The second question is, I think Shreeram was trying to hit on it. Like with all of these technologies, there is the unit economics of it, and there's also a logistics piece of it, which is that it only works within like a vicinity. So can you talk about like what does that look like for the solution that you're building, both from a unit economics, maybe materials and logistics?
So you rightly said, like logistics is a huge bummer for modular construction companies. So I think something interesting happened in the past 6-7 years is advent of distributed manufacturing and cloud manufacturing, where there is big companies, multi-billion-dollar companies who has proven this thesis. So we started following the same. And for us, logistics works as long as it's below 200 kilometers of radius. So if you look at if you want to map a country like India, you can cater the whole country probably with just 15 or 20 odd factories, and that's not a lot to manage, honestly, right? Like with so much advancement in technologies, remote monitoring has become super easier, and you can maintain inventory, you can maintain quality just like that. So I think decentralized cloud manufacturing has a great potential to solve for the logistics problem in India at least.
I think you have really hit the nail on its head. I mean, logistics is or has been the biggest challenge that is sort of held back factory-led construction, and automated construction to a large degree. So we believe that buildings, no matter, whether they are at the same site, whether they are of the same design, there is a little bit of customization that is required for almost all buildings. And there is a logistical requirement if we are getting structures from elsewhere. So the 3D printers that we design are essentially micro factories that can be packed up and moved in a days or a couple of days notice, and they can customize these structures at the construction site. So we do projects either on site or near site. So the 3D printer would, in almost all cases, be standing right at the construction site, building out either the entire building within the printer setup or printing panels which are then assembled. So this reduces the logistics and logistical cost to a very large degree. We are also designing printers to be sort of working in all weather conditions and have a basic sort of shelter from rain in place so that we can construct at the construction site throughout 365 days. So reducing logistical cost is a very big element of this. And the moment you start transporting materials between locations, I think, in my opinion, you lose the game. So that's one of the key focus areas that we have.
Logistics of precast, like how far can you build, unit economics of precast?
So see, every technology, what I believe is got the market segment. Now I've seen that, okay, at certain locations, maybe if your project is far away from the factory, it becomes a little bit cost sensitive. But at places I've seen, let's say we have transported elements for Lulu Mall in Lucknow from Krishnagiri factory in Bangalore. So the time we were setting up a factory to complete the Lulu Mall in Lucknow, temporarily the elements were dispatched from the Krishnagiri factory. That's almost like 1,000 kilometers. But the kind of project was like 1.2 million square feet was completed in a mere time frame of 24 months. So the timelines were a factor. Client was willing to absorb the cost, right? And that's how the cost economics were also working for that project. So we have transported elements from 1,000 kilometers also.
Changing gears a little bit and talking about sustainability, and maybe Tejas, we can start from you. Like, can you talk a little bit of aspect of the material science maybe involved, which is helping and make it more sustainable, and then maybe we can go back through the panelists.
So what we're seeing is the use of a lot of organic materials. So we're seeing startups using bamboo. We're seeing startups using agri-waste. So we run an open innovation cohort, and a startup that was part of our previous cohort, a startup called Alt-M. So they take agri-waste and extract lignin from it and see if it can have different applications in the construction industry. So from that perspective, sustainability is picking up. So I'll be upfront for our business, for Saint-Gobain businesses. If I take a startup, if I say that the green quotient is quite high, they say, okay, what about the rest of it, right? So business comes first. Sustainability is still good to have.
Got it. Shabbir, how do you think about sustainability for precast?
So definitely, it's a sustainable model of construction as, let's say, the wastage is reduced to a very drastic, way. For example, in most of our precast factories, the reinforcement comes in a coil format. So let's say typically in a conventional project wherein, the rebar wastage would be of the order of 8%, here we have a wastage of hardly like 1% or negligible wastage in terms of steel. In terms of concrete, definitely in a factory environment, you hardly have any wastage of concrete. So it's a sustainable way and a greener way to construct buildings.
So we look at sustainability from two perspectives. One is the kind of materials that we use. So we have made a conscious effort to use a higher quantity of fly ash, a higher quantity of GGBS, blast furnace slag in our concrete, trying to replace cementitious products to the extent possible. We also have a partnership with Green Jams, who, the company who spoke before us. So we are trying to incorporate greener materials into our products as we move forward as well. So that's one way of achieving sustainability. The second factor is buildings, they are erected for 60 years or 70 years and they consume energy over its lifetime. So if in the Indian context, let's say we can reduce the amount of cooling that's required for the building over its lifetime. That's a very significant saving. So when we 3D print buildings, usually they are hollow in nature. So we are able to print them with maybe 30% lesser material, but at the same time leaving hollow pockets, which reduces the energy consumption of the building over its lifetime. That's one way of looking at it. In the US context, of course, it's in many cases heating requirements are reduced over the building's lifetime. So we have to factor these in as we move forward. Sustainability becomes a very key factor in decision making for most real estate companies. So that's something that we are focusing on.
So, I think I resonate with Aditya a lot. So there are two things, right? One is the building process where you put the building together, and then you have the 50, 60 years of the building lifespan where you consume energy in different formats, right? So we are working mostly on the second half of it. So where by adopting for prefab and modular construction, anyway, the first half you're solving for it because your wastage is reduced, as Samir said, right? Apart from that, what we're also working on is infusing a couple of interesting materials into walls and roof to make it more energy efficient. Like one of the examples that we're working on is we have this the lightweight core which is filled with like rock wool or foam in between. So we are infusing phase change material into it. So this suddenly makes the whole walls and roof behave like a thermal battery, which is able to store energy. And of course, this can drive sustainability, but again, I'll just go back to what they just said, like business comes first. So sustainability comes at a price today, but there are again interesting GTMs you can figure out. So when our project, we work a lot with PSUs and governments. When we know that a project is being funded by ADB or any development banks, they have a clear inclination towards supporting technologies that is sustainable. So you have a champion there, right? So as long as your customers or the receiving party is able to appreciate it, I think you're in a safe spot. So that's, again, figuring out GTM is where it lies. So.
Got it. I think that, Aditya, you mentioned that like customer acceptance is like key. So a question to kind of all of you is that if you had to recommend, right, like what project types does your solution work best to? And within India, in your go-to-market journey, which are the regions that you have seen adopt your technologies faster and why? And I think that'll be an interesting insight for other folks who might be thinking about this space and industry.
So when it comes to prefab or factory-built solutions, we have found areas where access to materials is very tough. So this is like, if you want to like name states, of course, your Northeast is a very good go-to-market because that is the place with least competition. None of the construction companies are thrilled to operate there because construction is genuinely hard. When you're taking away 90% of the work to factories, it becomes super good value proposition for yourself to go solve for markets like that. And apart from that, largely the whole of rural India lacks access to good quality materials and good skilled people, right? So we are going probably like when 99% of the startups are launching in cities like Bangalore and Delhi and so on, we are actually going the other route. We're going after rural markets and Northeast markets which are least explored. And this is something that we have learned from our journey. So.
Right. So I think I'll belong in the first category that Shreeram mentioned. So we are currently focusing on structures which are up to G+2, 3 stories, primarily villas in India, and also what we call pod structures, or essentially volumetric structures which are meant for hospitality and other purposes, quick deployment structures. So these two are the core focus areas that we have in India. In the US and Middle East market, these are again about 2,000 to 3,000 square feet kind of houses. So our focus so far in the Indian market has been in the western and southern areas. So that's where we have received maximum traction. That's where the customer base for us also is currently. Moving forward, we have good commercial applications coming up for us, especially in the infrastructure and also warehousing segments, where certainly in markets like Middle East and US, warehousing construction costs are very, very high. So that's a focus area that we want to look at.
Shabbir.
So I will break down this question into 2 parts. First is the category of projects that you can do in precast or modular construction or 3D printing. So specifically in precast, we have handled, let's say, airport projects like facade, GFRC, UHPC, facade, etc. Then we have also, constructed like public buildings. So one of the mosque projects in Bangalore, near MG Road, Shivaji Nagar. It's a public building, beautifully done, 45,000 square feet, completed in about 60 working days. Then school projects we have done in precast, GEM school project in Kochi in Kerala we have done. We have recently completed a school project in UAE in Dubai. And we have seen office buildings, standard, typical column beam-like structures with hollow core slabs. We have seen a multi-level car park as universally, standard projects done purely in precast because it's the best efficient way to do it. Then we have seen hospitals. You can see a live example in India, Mitra Hospital in Kozhikode in Kerala, around a 200-bed hospital, completed in a mere span of about 18 months. So when I speak about these timelines, this includes design, engineering, production, erection, finishing, the complete handover to the customer when that building becomes completely operational, right? So we have covered all the spectrums of categories, public buildings, hospitals, school projects, so I don't see any limitations over there. Second is, what are the areas and how, we can span this industry across India. So see, way back in 2010, we saw hardly like 2 to 3 precast factories across India. Today, as we sit, there are more than 90 factories across India. So on an average, 2 factories are present in every state, right? So that's the scale of, how the industry has evolved over the period of a decade, almost like within 10 years of span. And as we speak today, as an organization also, we are working on franchisee models. So right from tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities also, we are getting inquiries to set up a small precast factory. So till date, we have handled precast factories producing 1,000 cubic meter of concrete per day to almost like 80 cubic meter per day also. So we see like wide variety of spectrum of factories coming up across India and across geographies.
And Tejas, from your perspective from Saint-Gobain, are there any regions that you see are ahead?
I think what we're best known for is glass. So for us, urban environments are still the primary markets. So for example, Infosys is one of our biggest customers, and if we have a more energy efficient type of glass that comes out, they pick it up immediately. So urban environments still big markets for us. Most of our products cater to the urban environments, the built environments in urban cities. We're trying to change that with Tvasta and Modulus. Maybe next year we'll have more to say on this.
Got it. Okay, last question for each one of you, and maybe 30 seconds. If you had one wish, other than money, to accelerate these technologies, what would that one wish be?
Actually, I have 2 wishes. So one is regulatory approvals that accelerates any industry, and the other one is talent pool. So modular construction and be it 3D printing, I think enough talent pool has to be probably from the education system, it has to be brought in, or probably some other way has to be figured. It is quite hard in terms of recruitment nowadays.
So the one wish that I would have for the entire industry is decision making on time. So I think people just take sometimes months, or in cases of government organizations, years to come to a decision on, going for a project, layout, plans, designs, whatever. So, it just slows down the entire process, and it's excruciating. So I think fast decision making is what I would say.
Shabbir?
So basically, I would have 2 wishes. First is, as Aditya and Shreeram has mentioned, cash flow management and timely decision making. Second is, obviously, academia has to play a very vital and important role, that some of the basic advanced construction technologies which are already being used globally, the new generation of engineers, the entire ecosystem has to be built right from that stage itself, from the academic institutes, so that there is less burden on the industry to train them to the evolving ecosystem and take that, because that also takes up a lot of our energy, cost as startup companies.
And Tejas, from your one wish, maybe not related to that, but one wish from a Saint-Gobain investment innovation perspective.
So this is something that we talked about last night at dinner. So graphene, I've been waiting for a long time for a startup in graphene. We've seen sort of glimmers, seen some sort of hope here and there, but if there's a startup that can really prove the efficiency of graphene, the value that it can bring to the construction industry, that'll be on my wish list.
Perfect. That's it. Do you have time for questions or? One question. Yes.
3D printing and modulars. See, in India, everyone is engineer. So they want to do some, after 10 years, some modification, some tempering things, some mezzanine floor adding. So those things, so post delivery, are you advising anything for the customers?
So certainly, I mean, some modifications can be made. Ours is not a very rigid system, so as long as they do not tamper with the structural aspects of the building, they can still make modifications and additions, subtractions, some elements are possible. Of course, adding a mezzanine floor, I mean, that depends on whether the structure has been designed to cater to a mezzanine floor. So maybe some aspect of that decision making has to be front loaded so that we design the building effectively. But broad answer is yes.
So I think incremental housing is a thing in India. We don't actually build the whole stuff initially. We keep adding it up. I think this is where modular thinking comes into picture, where if you can make elements in modular that is quite universal in nature, you can allow for future additions and retrofittation that would be possible, right? So we would highly go after modular principles. That would be my answer.
All right. That's it. It's his call.
Okay, sir.
We've spoken to them.
Okay, thank you so much, Aditya, and all our respected panelists for shedding the light on this two amazing technologies. And I really hope that all your wishes come true in meantime. So I would request Vijay sir to please come on stage to felicitate our respected panelists. Can we have a big round of applause for all our panelists for sharing their amazing thoughts, experience with us?